Hey everybody, it's Steve Biederman. It's Friday. It's June 9th, 2023. I am really excited to talk to you. But here's a funny thing that just happened to me. I was speaking with the producer of this show, Anda, about the next show and what we plan to talk about in the next show. And I got very, very excited about this next show. And it isn't that I'm not excited about today, but I sort of have to bring myself down for a minute because I'm really looking forward to that show. And I hope that this one fits into that one. It'll be disruptive, the next one. This one may be more logical to you. So let's talk about this. You know, there are some basic tenets in business, in any organization, that have to be in place if you're going to have any opportunity to be successful. Now, when I say that, what I mean is, yes, there are lottery wins. Yes, there are people that go against the grain and completely break every rule in the book and get success. But those are not necessarily the ideas that I'm speaking about today, because a lot of that is luck. Some of that is genius or savant. And most of us are just people working hard to try to get something done in our lives, in our world, in our business. So if I am building a business, I have to be able to know what are the basic pillars. And when I say pillars, I mean foundation pieces that I really cannot go build my business without putting this foundation in place, not as a sidebar, but as the basis of whatever I choose to do. 3 words: critical. If any of these 3 are not in place in your foundation, I do not believe that you have a great chance of finding success. They won't assure success, but I don't believe that you can get there without it. Affordable, repeatable, and sustainable. So, if I'm building a business, let's start with affordable. And I want to do something. So I am building myself a technology business. In our business at Noble Biz, we implement call center technology, which are the communications tools used in contact centers. So it's really critical. And within that business, when we started to do that business, before we ever examined anything, we had to know that we could afford to be in that business. And that meant that once we defined what the costs, the real costs, the actual costs, dollar costs of that business were, we had to accept that as what I call the cost of doing business. There is a cost to any business you go into, and it's a very real cost. Look, there are other costs. There are emotional costs. There are intellectual costs. There are a lot of costs, but I'm talking really serious money. If I am going to sell and implement technology to contact centers, I have to be able to afford to do it. Well, you might say, well, then whatever the cost is, I'll just build that into my pricing to make sure that I cover my cost. But come on, is that a pillar? No, first of all, that's dependent upon something. That's dependent upon making a sale. And so does that mean I don't have money and I have not been able to implement my business properly and afford it with the cost of doing business because I'm waiting for a sale? Now, you see businesses that do that. They say, look, I will invest when I see the right customer in the right situation in the right way and accepting my price this way. By the way, some of those businesses can work. I call them boutique businesses. They're custom-driven businesses built on this singular relationship you may have with your client. Consultants often do that. But even as a consultant, I need to make sure that I have accepted the costs of doing that business, meaning my skill sets, my education, my experience all had to come into play. So I have to accept the cost of doing business ahead of time before I ever make a sale and know that I have already done the pieces that cost the money, meaning I have to have the money. Now, if I have the money to get started in the contact center space selling technology and implementing it, what's the next thing? The next thing is repeatable. If I only invest enough upfront to do a single or a small number of these implementations, and then I build the case that says, as long as I continue to get sales, I'll be able to afford it. And I've built no ramp, meaning a length of time to strike the market, to brand yourself in the market, and to assure that the market wants you. And I haven't accepted the cost of doing business, then doing my business is not repeatable. So I have to be able to afford my business, upfront, invest in the cost of doing business ahead of time. I have to be able to invest enough that it's repeatable. But before I go on to the next, what I want to say is when it's talking repeatable, it's more than money. Now we're talking more than money. So repeatable, yes, is money that I had to have up front, but it's also having the people, the process, the approach, the skill sets, and understand the craft and experience necessary to do the work correctly. Which means, by the way, I have to go hire people. I have to go find a way to make sure that I get more than one customer, that I can do this over and over. And by the way, that means now I have to invest in marketing. So marketing isn't a decision that you make after the fact once you get established. I don't believe most people can get established without marketing because marketing is a driver. It's another meeting that we'll have on the drivers of a business that assure it's affordable and repeatable. But nonetheless, there are many areas I have to look at. And look, there are many people that begin businesses very small with an idea in their own head that they want to go do, and it's valuable, and they believe they can pull it off. Those people may or may not have the experience to think in terms of, I've got to build an affordable approach that is repeatable. They may not have that, and they may just jump right in. But every single day, every day, they jump right in before they've done the hard work necessary. And why I'm sharing this with you today is a risk to the ability to do the third thing, which is sustain the business. So a business needs to be affordable. It needs to be repeatable for all the reasons I said, and then it needs to be sustainable for the length of time that you have to maintain yourself to be in business, either to meet your success formula, your exit formula, or whatever that formula may be for yourself. Hand it to the family, to the next generation, whatever that is, it has to be sustainable. And listen, this is a critical piece to understand, that you have to do the work up front. You have to build your plan and know where your money is and accept the cost of doing that business at the beginning before you go from your head to making your first sale. Because If you don't do those things, there is a risk to you being repeatable and sustainable, which means you're going to let your customer down, and you're not going to probably meet the promise that you made to that client, which is you're not going to sell them something and run away and disappear. You're going to sell them something that you can support, encourage, train, and be involved with. So think about that there's a lot of pieces. I always say this, other than a lottery win, getting rich isn't easy. It just isn't. And it means that you have to be prepared to do the work. I always wonder, I'm in Colorado, and a few years ago, I looked at the number of small businesses in Colorado, all businesses in Colorado. And there were at that time like 700,000 businesses. And remember, we're not a big state with a huge population. So in that context, how in the world can you have 600,000 businesses? And remember that within that first X amount of years, most of those businesses close. So I have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of businesses that close. And I believe the key to that is they didn't accept the cost of their business. They didn't plan ahead. They didn't invest ahead. They didn't assure that that business that they were going to do would be affordable without new customers. They didn't ensure ahead of time that it could be repeatable without a perfect implementation or sustainable. I'm watching Denver in basketball today. The Denver Nuggets are in the finals of the NBA, the World Championship, they call that. Denver is up 2-1. So they lost a game, and it was 1-1, and then they won this last game. They have to win 4 to get there. So when I was reading today, I was reading this, that the sense is that the Denver Nuggets are the most talented of the teams in the playoffs. Their personnel are better, and they should be winning. They should win this championship. And that the other team, in this case the Miami Heat, who has strong management, strong coaching, and some obviously good players and a good team, but for them to win, they have to be at their best. They have to be perfect. Can they win? Sure. Sometimes we do, against the odds, without building the proper pillars, we do win. But also those hundreds of thousands of businesses in Colorado go out of business more times than not. So you see the correlation, which is, do I want to build a business like the Denver Nuggets or the Miami Heat? Well, of course I want to invest in it and build it like the Denver Nuggets, because here's the thing. Even if the Miami Heat win, is it sustainable? Can they win next year and the year after? And I think about Golden State and Steph Curry and that great team that has won year in and year out. And why did they do it? They did it because they found a way to afford their business. Doesn't mean it was cheap. They just found a way to afford it, to repeat it, and to sustain it. And look, it's straightforward to tell you these words. It's really, really intense to pull it off. So my suggestion to you, to everyone, is to take this with you. Write these 3 words down: affordable, repeatable, sustainable. And don't get started on selling your first customer till you have thought through those things, come up with the requirements of the cost of doing business, and then at the end of the day, invest in it and trust yourself. If it's a good idea and you can afford it and repeat it, it'll become sustainable. So with that, I cannot wait till the next podcast. It's going to be a disruptive conversation. I am very excited about it, and I think this is a basis for it. So with that, you take care. Have a good next couple weeks. I look forward to talking to you again. Take care. Bye.